To thank you for making Subway footlongs famous, now enjoy any regular footlong as a $5 footlong. That's right, any, including your favorites, like the savory chicken and bacon ranch. Any Subway regular footlong is just $5. Hurry in.
The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
This is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
it might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't
The
care.
BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report. Not on the Subway Fresh Take hotline today, in studio, our old friend Dave Dameshek, who faced, I think, one of the great sports moral conundrums, really in mankind's history.
I really feel that way, and first of all, good to see you, sports guy. And,
Good to see you, too. Let me set it up.
Okay, go ahead, please.
You're a diehard Penguins fan. You refer to Mary Lemieux as 66 and not as an actual name, like he's some sort of higher being. He's like Jacob in Lost to you.
Yeah, interesting comparison.
Thank you. Sid the Kid Crosby, you've anointed as the next one.
That's right.
You're very invested in him. You were at my house for a birthday party, a Pittsburgh Penguins game last year, and my uncle and my father both became fascinated by how into the hockey game you were. And my dad actually said, I never knew anyone could like hockey that much. So that's the setup. You love Sid the Kid, you love the Penguins, and you love America.
I do love, listen, first of all, on Twitter over the last fortnight or so, I sort of started to try and figure this moral conundrum out. I didn't know which way to go. And listen, red, white, and blue through and through. But I realized, I guess, like you say, I'm not just a Penguins fan, but all Pittsburgh teams. And I guess I sort of came to the conclusion I'm black and gold before I'm red, white, and blue.
Well, so 3 minutes left, 2-1. Sid the Kid gets a breakaway to ice the game and just botches it, messes it up. It's a borderline disaster how bad it turns out. He doesn't even get a good shot on goal.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, well, it
was a choke job.
First of all, let me say this. Yeah, you're right. So going into this tournament, I had to ask myself, which team do you root for? Do you root for your homeland, or do you root for the superstar of your team? Because really, people say, well, what's the difference? It doesn't do anything for your hockey team if he does well. I disagree. Of course, he's 22 years of age. It really, obviously he's already won a Stanley Cup, but winning, if he is the key figure in winning in Canada, by the way, right, then it really elevates his confidence even more.
But
and
what about you got the reverse, though, as we saw with the breakaway. He botches that.
Exactly,
USA
yes.
scores at the end.
Right.
Now you're facing a new world order where USA wins in overtime, followed by everyone in Canada blaming Sid the Kid for not icing the game.
Right, and then now that's in his head. And by the way, of course, if you give me a choice, I'll take the USA beating Canada if that game had ended 2-1 and Crosby had nothing to do with it. Now, as it is, and by the way, let me just say this. I have, just like Commissioner Goodell, I have my own fan conduct policy. I've tried to analyze all these things, but there was never any assessment on my part for this particular situation. When will we ever have to deal with this? I'm against rooting for two teams in the same sport.
It's basically sports bigamy, but you're not a sports bigamist, but the laws of sports bigamy are in effect.
Yes.
You have you're
right,
tied to two teams, and now they're playing each other, and you don't really know until it's playing out exactly where your emotions lay.
Here's what I
Sid the
say.
Kid misses the breakaway. What was your reaction? Great, that's great. He missed it, or damn it.
I will say, I of course hate the New Jersey Devils, but when Zach Parise scored to force the overtime, I was thrilled. That was fantastic. We're all, who's going to win now that it's overtime? All of us, Bill. That's
right.
That's
We're all
who gets
winners
to win.
at
That
point,
was
yeah.
fantastic. But the thing for Americans who are upset.
You didn't
how
answer my question.
What?
What was
happy?
your reaction when you missed the breakaway?
Right. I was worried. You could have just iced the game away. This would have been a signature goal in the tournament, and a lesser effect of what we have today, which is Crosby is now a legend, for all of time now.
He's a good Paul Henderson.
That's exactly right. Wow, Paul Henderson, very nice sports guy.
Yeah.
and it's in Canada. And so as far as that goes, think about this now. Americans today, it feels to me like I was thinking yesterday, people who, Twitter and, who tweeted me and wrote me emails about like, you're a traitor and Benedict Arnold and so on and so forth for rooting for Crosby. Listen, it's sort of like, I have a 1-year-old little boy and a little girl who's almost 3. She wants toys that he's playing with, and because she's bigger, she can go and take them. Even though she has no interest in the toy, it's just something that she can go and take. It feels like to me Canada is my little boy, and we as America are the bigger girl, like just going and taking it because you can. We don't need that toy. We didn't need the gold medal. Canada needed that gold medal. It would have been terrible. Our lives wouldn't be much different today if we'd won the gold medal. For Canada, it was everything. They lost that devastation.
I thought the same thing, and here's what happens if we win. It's awesome. It's the big story today. There's a parade. And 4 days later, nobody really remembers or how whatever. It just kind of goes away. It becomes another part of the whole sports cycle of the year.
Everybody loved to try to perpetuate the idea after they beat them the first time. Like, this is another miracle on ice. Fat. No. I mean, ridiculous. This is not.
First of all, they weren't even 2-1 underdogs yesterday. Right. There was no miracle. It was pretty two evenly matched teams for the most part.
Yeah, all right. Listen, I get it. The Canadian team had more all-stars, but this was not farm boys against the most talented players in the world.
Yeah,
this
college kids and
NHLers, and everything else. But I will say, imagine how cool, Kid Crosby still stays under the roof of 66 Lemieux in Pittsburgh, PA. And so he scores the overtime goal, does Crosby yesterday. In the Canada Cup, the predecessor really to the NHLers
playing.
Talking
to 86, 87,
87, yeah. 66 scores to beat the Soviets. Right. In that one with a minute plus to go.
The last truly great
one.
international moment.
Yeah. And now they live under the same roof together. How about that?
Well, you mentioned how, all right, Canada loses that. It's a borderline, not actual suicide, but mass suicide mentality. It would take months for them to come out of that.
People, I can't even figure out the right analogy. Think about.
There is no analogy.
It's like, well, the U.S. It would be like the U.S. losing in baseball.
No, it's like nothing. It's like all 4 of our sports combined.
That's
Canada.
Exactly right. That's the difference. Is hockey is everything. It's not like, well, basketball, baseball, and football. It's hockey and all right, CFL. Come on, we're not.
And in the home arena, which kind of tripled the. How important a guy. And you can feel it in the crowd. Yeah, you can feel that third period they checked out.
Well, shouldn't we be altruistic enough as a country to be able to say, listen, that was in Canada, and now and like you say, Paul Henderson, this wasn't a guy on the team. This was the next in line, behind 66 and Gretzky and Orr and so on. And he scored the overtime winner, and they get to sing the best national anthem on the face of the earth. Oh, Canada. What a great, that was pretty cool.
It was good.
And again, the U.S., fine. So they had a good run anyway. They still get to the finals. And all this nonsense too, by the way, about, well, we beat them once and they beat us once. Well, nobody brings that up when 2 teams have a rematch in the Super Bowl and it goes differently.
There's one thing that you could say though, and I thought about saying it on Twitter yesterday, but I was like, you know what? I love Canada. It's a great country. They've always done right by me. The people are great fans. Like I don't want to pee on this at all. But now it's a day later. The 4-on-4 overtime is an outrage.
Yeah.
I mean, that was such an advantage for Canada, a finesse team with speed, with one-on-one guys like
Disagree
Crosby.
with you about that. The speed was better on the U.S. team. That was the reason they won the first game was because...
Well, but you're talking about like gritty hockey speed. I'm talking about like just that... The guys, like what Crosby did on their final goal, he just basically split 2 guys. And then we didn't have a guy who could make a play like that, I don't think. Do you?
Oh yeah, I think so. First of all, there was more speed on the U.S. team than they're just
somebody who was going to single-handedly win the game. Like Crosby, but you know what I mean?
Well, listen, we should all feel lucky that it didn't go to a shootout, and that would have been a shame. That would have been a travesty.
Well,
it could have wound up doing that.
Let's go this way. Did America have anybody on the level of Crosby or Nash?
No, but that's it. Yeah, Nash is another one.
Was it Ginla better than everyone on America?
I will say, yes, definitely the forwards for Canada were superior.
Crosby
but
and
the
Nash
blue
far
line was
superior to the
close.
American guys.
I think that's accurate.
I watched that all 2 weeks of that tournament, and I came away thinking, like, I don't follow hockey enough on a day-to-day basis, but I was like, how is Nash not at least like always mentioned along with Ovechkin and Crosby? He just seems like 6'4", and he was faster than everybody, and he had moves.
He's dynamite. Look,
it was like, what does this guy not have?
Look at him. Look him up on YouTube. He has some of the great highlight goals.
Seems like he should be in the discussion. Maybe he tried harder than he normally does. I don't know.
Maybe
I don't want to be the guy who sees Vince Carter in the Olympics and goes, he dunks on Frederick Weiss. Why isn't he the best guy? But at the same time, I was absolutely petrified of him.
Yeah,
the whole time.
He's dynamite, well, maybe it has something to do with it's rare that the NHL makes a bad decision, but that they put a team in Columbus maybe is part of the problem.
Yeah, I mean, he could be in Hamilton right now or somewhere where he'd be a Canadian here. But back to the 4-on-4 thing.
It's a weird You know what, though?
That's a disadvantage for America because 5-on-5, I feel like they're better off.
That's true, and more ice for the better skill is probably going to win out. I actually always say, though, again, it could have wound up in a shootout, and then that would have been really bad. But then the World Cup coming up in soccer now. Isn't it worse that thing goes to shootouts? Shouldn't soccer take a page, actually, from Olympic hockey and start doing that?
Go 10-on-10, 9-on-9, 8-on-8.
9-on-9, yeah. Keep doing that overtime, just keep reducing it because it does produce goals. At least it gives you a winner. It raises the chances that somebody's going to win the game instead of it going to that nonsense.
I hate playing the whole I should be the commissioner of everything thing. You like to do it too.
Sure.
But for the gold medal game in hockey, that should go until somebody scores. I get the shootout concept in the earlier rounds. It's a disadvantage for a team to play 3 overtime periods and play the next day. Now it's a gold medal game. All right. Let's just 5-on-5 till somebody scores. I think we're good with that. If the game goes 6 hours, it goes 6 hours.
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be great.
That's how it should be settled. The 4-on-4 I thought was garbage. It was the equivalent of like you have the NBA Finals, Game 7. Oh, it's overtime. And we're going to go to 4-on-4 now. Like, obviously, is who's going to benefit the most? LeBron.
Right. Yeah.
LeBron's got 4-on-4 now? Give me a break.
That is ridiculous. But as long as we're making changes, how about this? Here's a change that we don't need, I was thinking, as you're looking at these guys get their medals. Who decided that it was all right to turn an Olympic medal into, the medals that these people were getting over the last couple weeks here looked like a CD that I left in a hot car. It's that wilted kind of bent up thing. And then a couple of years ago, it was a medal and it had a hole in the middle of it. When did that become allowed? It's a medal. It's got to be a little. Aren't there rules? It's got to look basically like a puck. When did you can't interpret it. You're not allowed to turn it into whatever you want to.
I don't think I noticed this. I would have gotten upset about it. It was a
bent up, weird, crazy thing. This medal. How dare they? Who are you to do that?
Jacko and I have had an idea since college that the medal should be different sizes depending on the gravity of the event. It's like hockey. It'd be gigantic. You've played 2 weeks, these games, so you get like the Flava Flav medal. But you win that 4 skiers on the stupid track thing. It's like the size of a silver dollar.
Yeah, they might
have to investigate.
They have to do something. Listen, everybody likes to crack wise about curling. And it is, by the way, I think curling would be about as much fun as anything, any sport you could play. Wouldn't that be great?
Yes.
If you had a few belts in you, but that you get the same medal as what Crosby just got yesterday is ludicrous. And by
the guy
the way,
from Team Canada, he kind of looked like Ed Harris. He's like in his 40s. Just like not somebody you look at and go, that's one of the elite athletes of our generation.
It's on Facebook, the Olympics, and especially I guess the Winter Games, but sort of the Summer Games too have certain events, certain sports in there. It's like Facebook. Every 4 years, you're like, oh, yeah, that guy. I haven't seen that guy since high school. It's good to see him again. Yeah. But then other ones, you're like, oh, no, that's the problem.
John Schuster.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, no, that guy's got – now I got to sit through that. I got to look at that guy. It seems to me that the two most – curling we can make fun of and rhythmic gymnastics and everything.
I like the curling.
I like it. It's an Olympic sport.
I'm going to say that was one of the top 3 or 4 most dramatic moments when the women's team choked on really the final
good.
rock. I mean, that's it. You take care of that rock, you win the gold medal. She misses it, leaves the door open for Sweden and their little heavyset nanny of a skip. I don't know if you saw the men's curling. Another one of the great moments. Canada's winning. It's the last round, frame, set. What do they call it?
I don't know.
They're up 6-4. Basically, they're going to win. They have Ed Harris. Ed Harris is going to clean it out. Crowd starts singing "Oh Canada" from the beginning, and he's about to do the puck. Guy gets choked up, has to stop, waits for the end of the song, and has the lump in the throat. It's emotional. I was getting choked up.
So curling might be the second place sport in Canada. So again, Americans today, be happy that they won it's their sport, hockey. They had to win it. So
if Cheryl Bernard hits that rock, that's the greatest Olympics any country's ever had. They win most gold medals ever. They win their two sports.
Here's the problem with curling too. My question is, doesn't it seem like the brooming thing shouldn't really work as much as it does? I question these two people feverishly met with a broom. And somehow that works. But if if we can have bowling alleys in this country and everything else, strike while the iron is hot, people. Somebody needs to do this. Open up curling places.
You'd be surprised.
And serve beer. Wouldn't people love that here?
You'd be surprised how many there are.
Really?
Yeah. Because I talked about this in a podcast last week. Got all these emails. There's a Hollywood curling.
Really? Oh, let's do it.
I emailed Kimmel and I was like, why don't we get a bunch of us and we'll take on the Hollywood curling thing. You could shoot a bit. And he's like, no, we can't do it. Stephen Colbert did that 2 years ago. We can't. It's all right, well, it doesn't mean he and Stephen Colbert ruined the idea forever. It's fine, or we should do it anyway. Have
the Hollywood Boulevard superheroes do something
I'm thinking one of our kids' birthday parties should be a curling birthday party.
Hey, listen, I got a birthday coming up. Let's do that. We don't need the kids unless we
maybe
can curl.
Somebody's 40th.
Maybe that's the turn on it. Stephen Colbert didn't use his 1-year-old children instead of the rock. We just pushed the kids down. That would be a fun little.
Interesting.
Now, but as far as that goes, we could go out there and see how we would do against these people. That's what I was thinking about specifically with the luge. I think that again, to your idea about the value of the event and what size the medal should be, I sort of feel like, I don't know what it's like in Europe or anywhere else. I'm sure people are, there are a lot of lugers over there. But in the U.S., I feel literally like I could decide a month before the Olympics. You know what? I think I'm going to be on the U.S. luge team. How many can there be in America? 3 or 4? Hey, great. Dameshek, you'll jump in. We were looking for some bodies.
You're
to
too
do this.
slow.
How good or bad can one be at luging? I mean, you lay on your back and you kind of move your feet a little bit. There can't be any real.
You have to have good vision, I think. Because you're lying on your back, basically.
I guess
looking
so,
down.
but that's not really athletic, is it? Don't you think you could do that?
I would say the easiest job, if you're a good athlete and had strong legs, would be the second guy in the bobsled.
That is
the guy in the back who pushes it, and then he hops in, and that's it. He's done. He's just sitting there.
Well, how about that? Yeah, but the bobsled. So we have the two-man bobsled, the guy who is the pilot, he steers it.
The pilot does stuff.
And then the guy in the back who pushes it, who's really fast.
He's a grunt. He's the Luca Brasi of...
That's right.
That's all he is. He's ultimately making no decision.
Right. Yeah, the master blaster from Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
Yeah.
Right. So, but do we need... If we have that established, do we need the 4-man bobsled too? Do we need to add the extra 2 guys in there? It would be like in NASCAR if you said all right, the Daytona 500's over. Now we have to run the second Daytona 500 where 2 guys sit in the back seat and just are along for the ride. What do those 2 guys in the middle accomplish at all? They're just running along.
And why wouldn't they all be built like David Spade? What do you want, less weight? The 2 middle guys are 5'7", 110 pounds?
Yeah, you go out and get the guys, you get Darren Sproles type guys.
I don't know why they stopped at 4, though. You'd think why not 6? Why not 8? Could we get a 12?
Now that would be fun to watch. I'll tune in for that.
How far can you go?
Yeah.
Maybe you should be able to pick how many people you can have in the bobsled. I don't know. Back to the hockey game, though.
Well, I'll say this about it, too. One other thing that people are fond of saying, it seems like in the last week, is the hyperbole. Of course, whatever event is happening, it has to be the biggest thing that's ever happened in the world. But this Canadian team is not this is the greatest assembly of talent in the history of hockey. Is what
the 87 Canada Cup team was.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
You talk about
Lemieux and Gretzky.
You had Lemieux and Gretzky. You talk about
never be topped.
Is anybody as good as Iginla? Yeah, there's nobody on that Canadian team right now that compares with either one of those. Plus, you had Messier. I mean, listen.
Well, that's like the 92 Dream Team argument when after 08 they were like, is this the best team ever? Someone was like, no. We had a team that had Michael Jordan in his prime and then about 10 other Hall of Famers who were all top 40 guys, all in their primes.
Well,
we're not topping that.
I talked to you about that last year. I think there is something. It is an interesting discussion, at least. I guess you're right, but I think like if
our
you
2012 team is the team that you could potentially make the case because that's going to have LeBron
right
at the peak of his powers.
That's I brought. So maybe I was
Kobe.
premature with that.
But 08 was not the team. 12 is the team that we might be able to top that 92 team.
Because and the only place you really lose versus like one of those, I guess like the early 90s team, is at center. Dwight Howard maybe doesn't stack up with whoever you would run out there for that.
Ewing Robinson, I think, yeah. They're going to – the shame of it is that that Hakeem wasn't on the 92 team because obviously he was born in another country. If you put him on that team instead of Ewing, it's all over. It's done. End it.
Yeah, but I think like if you took the the All NBA team, the 5 best All NBA NBAers right now, I think they might actually take a run at like let's say 1988, the very best All NBA team. If you take Bird,
I wouldn't go with 88 because 88 you have Bird and Magic still in their primes and you have Jordan.
Oh,
unless you're saying athletically, I think 96 is a good case.
What, not 96?
No, I think they could. I think the 08 would have beaten 96, 00, or 04.
Well, I'm not talking Olympics. I'm talking all NBA.
Just like the best 5.
The best 5 guys, if you take Bird, Magic, like right, what did we say, like 86, 88, somewhere in that range, the best NBA players at that point, and I think that would be the best.
I did this in my book, and 84 was the team that I thought would have been the most devastating Olympic team. Because you had Bird and Magic in their prime. You had Jordan coming out of college, who would have been like the young gun off the bench. Mm-hmm. But you had an awesome Bernard King year, who was unstoppable. You had young Ewing in college Ewing, just blocking shots. Mm-hmm. You had Kareem, who still had the skyhook and was still money in the bank 2 points. I mean, you go down the line, that would have been outrageous. But I think the 12 team could be. Well, and 12 team could be fascinating.
It's interesting. I agree that it is an exciting time for the NBA because of what is on the way now with LeBron and Chris Paul and everybody else. And I think the same is true for the NHL. I don't want to go crazy because this was a good tournament, but I was saying this before the Olympics. I was saying it last year with Crosby and Malkin with the Penguins and Ovechkin and that's a loaded team.
We call him Ovi in this house.
Ovi?
Yeah.
All right. Call him what you want. I call him a creep is what I call him. He proves it again. It's all over YouTube. He brushes aside some woman fan of his.
He crushed Jagr.
He did this. Listen, Ovechkin is dynamite. He is a force of nature inside the other team's blue line. He's awesome to watch, but he also he cuts a figure to look at. He's villainous. And so he's a great story, but just about every NHL team has at least one guy, sort of like the NBA now, has at least one sort of younger guy that is dynamite. Like you say, Rick Nash. You can go through every roster, and there's one guy who is really exciting. And I don't necessarily think this is true for the NHL, but I think it is going to be on the rise as long as Bettman and company get out of their own way. Because, on the heels of this, the playoffs are going to start soon. And as of now, we're not going to be able to watch games on Versus if you have DirecTV. So we're not, and of course, Versus is going to put the Penguins and Capitals on all the time. We're not going to get to see that.
That's done?
I don't know. I know I don't get the Versus games now, so I don't know when it's going to happen. So that would be terrible. But here's what I'm going to say, and call me crazy. I think that just like in the 20s, horse racing and boxing were the king sports along with baseball, and now they're, marginalized pretty much. Everybody just assumes that the big sports are football and then baseball under that. I think baseball's on the way out. I really do. What do you think?
Oh, I've been saying that.
Don't you think it's? I think NBA is going to trump it, and I think the NHL, if it positions itself just the right way, could be at least catching up to it in about a decade from now if things play out just so.
Baseball has one thing going for it. I wrote about the problems the NBA is going to have in the future with trying to get fans and trying to get people to get season tickets, stuff like that. Baseball's outside, which is the best. You could take your kids are older, take them to Dodger Stadium. The game itself doesn't really matter. You're outside, you're in the ballpark, or whatever. People are always going to want to go to a baseball stadium. You don't have that with the NBA. Nobody's going to go, oh, I just realized it's February. I haven't been to the Staples Center yet. Nobody's saying that.
Yeah, that's a good point, I guess.
Baseball, I think, will always have that element. My issue is that it just seems like the people that are protecting the flame for it are either older media people or the stat heads. And, I think the game's become so complicated to evaluate. You know, all these formulas now and stuff. And it's like, I'm going to make the leap this year, I think, and actually try to learn all these formulas and stuff. And, because it's gotten to the point where you almost can't express an opinion unless you know the 9 formulas that have backed up your whole point
that's
on
right.
whoever you're. I watch these guys. I watch the Red Sox all the time. I'm not allowed to have an opinion on any of them unless I'm sure that, I got to check the guy's UZR, make sure his defensive. A good example is Mike Lowell last year, who was not a good defensive player last year because he had hip surgery. He just lost his range. Now, I was watching that and thinking wow, Mike Lowell just doesn't have any range anymore. But until I go and I look up the stats and make sure I'm right, that's not something I can argue to somebody who has all this stuff memorized. It's a little intimidating.
It is. Yeah, you're right about. Yeah, that's one thing that. Right. Yeah.
Now somebody could make the argument. Well, listen, it's your job to research this stuff, but at what point did following sports become,
homework.
AP statistics, AP calculus? I don't even. You look at these formulas and it's like, what is this? It's like,
the
things
stats,
being divided and Park effects. It's like, what?
And the stats that are perpetuated to us on TV for the most part, like the one are the people in the know scoff at his batting average. That's meaningless. That doesn't mean anything.
Is it really
I don't
meaningless?
Yeah. So now I'm dumb because
right. Well, a good example is RBI, which now they're all like, listen, throw that stat out. It means nothing. It can't mean nothing.
Well, it's
got to mean something. Right. I get the whole concept of RBIs directly tied to people getting on base in front of you and whatever. There are better ways to figure out if somebody can drive in runs. Mm-hmm. But it can't mean nothing.
Football does a pretty good job. I guess the NFL does a fairly good job of not getting you think about the play calls when you hear them talk about it, like Z18 swoosh, that long thing. That really doesn't impact our viewing, and we're not required. It's not implied that we have to understand that.
There's no higher sense of being for understanding football.
Right, yeah.
We don't get it. Collinsworth can look at the line and watch all 22 guys.
I love watching Hodge and Jaws break it down on matchup. I love their inside stuff, but I don't have to see that live because they don't see it. But it's almost they're too cool for school with their stats. But I think the thing that maybe saves baseball is our RBIs and home runs and stuff like that. Fantasy baseball. Fantasy baseball is quietly, arguably more fun than NFL fantasy is.
And it keeps you invested in all that stuff. I think
that's the only thing that our generation. That's the only thing that can save it. You think about Bob Costas. It's funny to think about. We used to sort of think that keeps it sort of relevant because he's a younger guy who's relatively hip. But now he's getting old too. Who is, like you say, carrying the flame that is in our generation?
Listen, stats are good, especially for baseball. I think it's the one sport out of all the sports where we can definitively put guys into categories and say, this is what this guy did in this spot, in this spot, in this spot. It's an individual sport. I'm not relying on my teammates to do this or that. Really, the only person that relies on teammates, I think, is a pitcher. Mm-hmm. His, if he's got bad defensive people behind him with no range or whatever, the park he's playing in, those things affect him. Now, they've figured out stats to correct that to some degree. But, I look at something like Johnny Damon this year. Nobody wanted to sign Johnny Damon. This is a guy that if you ask any Yankee fan, what are the reasons we won last year? Johnny Damon is one of the first few things they're going to mention. They're going to be like, top of the order. He had great at-bats. He was clutch. He was a freaking warrior. He played 150 games every year. That's somebody I didn't want to lose. I'm mad we lost him. and he signs with the Tigers for $8 million, the stat heads would say, well, he's a terrible defensive player. And that's why you can't, it's an offense, defense, whatever. Well, if he was such a terrible defensive player, then how did he play on the 04 champs and the 09 champs? Like, are we overrating defense then?
Yeah, it's all, yeah, right.
Like Manny was on the 04 and the 07 Red Sox, world champions. He played left field like he was drunk half the time. So at some point we have to maybe remove some of this.
Bridge the gap.
At some point there's got to be a middle ground. No Yankee fan is happy about losing Johnny Damon.
And you're probably right. That's the bigger thing. And then on some level, the pious hand wringing about the steroid era and everything. I think the thing that is ironically the most dangerous is all these sports writers who are protecting the integrity of the sport by not voting in these steroid guys. What happens to the Hall of Fame?
I hate that.
So you're not going to go. So these guys aren't in the Hall of Fame. So you'll go there. The idea of, like you say, taking your kids to the ball game, the notion of fathers and sons at the ballpark and everything else. What's our generation saying to? What are you going to say to your boy? Like, yeah, all the best players, yeah, they're not in the Hall of Fame. So Pete Rose, the hit king, the home run king, Barry Bonds, none of those guys are in the Hall of Fame. So now it's irrelevant, right?
It's a museum. I'm going there to learn about baseball. Pete Rose has to be in the museum.
And
all of the sluggers that we watch, Barry Bonds has to be in the museum. He has to.
That's right.
Just put it on his plaque that he cheated.
The other ironic thing that I think hurts baseball now and going forward is, Field of Dreams was nice and all the picture, and those cheeseball songs, talking baseball, like all that kind of cheesy, waxing poetic about the sport is not cool at all now. It is so square, that kind of stuff. It really, the NBA absolutely should trump it in the next decade. Don't you think? I mean, especially with the stars in the league now. I think
the NBA is always going to have it's always going to have the race thing, though.
Oh,
it's a predominantly black league, and that the country has gotten a lot better in that respect.
That leads me to think of
you forget how many people there are that are crazy about that.
That there's, and that reminds me of something I saw yesterday. If you saw the Lakers Nugs game, wasn't it? I mean, Ron Artest, you and I feel like you and I are the only two people in Los Angeles County who said this the day that they made the deal for Ron Artest. I get that, you could make a case that Trevor Ariza is the one who walked away and the Lakers tried to retain him or whatever.
Man, they really didn't.
However you decide to figure that one out, I still contend that they're better off with Ariza and obviously Ariza's upside and everything else. But the potential for Artest to blow up is still there, and we're now 3/4 of the way through the season. And if you saw the game yesterday, he's going back and forth with Carmelo the whole game. And think how close he came. Did you see when Carmelo fouled out?
Well, see, I wasn't watching because at the gold medal game, I ended up watching the whole after thing, and I totally forgot about the Laker game. And I turned back.
How about that? This was one of the most that hockey game was had humongous viewership too. So that hopefully is
what helped was the no commercials.
Yeah.
It cruised along. It was just a good visual experience, and there was no way to get pulled away because it never stopped. It was just that. There we go. We're still on the ice. It just never ended.
Yeah,
it was great.
But so if you see this highlight, Artest starts swinging his arms, taunting sort of Melo right behind him, and he almost hits Melo on the arm. It would have been an accident, but if he had, Melo is now frustrated that he's been fouled out. He wheels around, and if it seemed precariously close to. I think if he hits him, Melo turns around, and then there's a fight, and then Ron Artest is in a lot of trouble. He obviously is working on 2 strikes right now. Nothing bad can happen, and it was that close. I mean, that's how for Lakers fans, that's how close it is to a big blow up.
There's 2 problems with him. First is what you said, he's a loose cannon. Second is he's just not as good anymore.
He's not. I mean, that's the other thing. People, it's not just that he's a kook. He's just not good. He's old now.
He's really slipped. I mean, athletically, he gets blocked at the rim constantly. I think that was the main reason the Rockets let him go last year, because they keep track of guys getting blocked at the rim, shots under the rim, stuff like that. And he's just a guy who now plays under the rim, which you really can't do as a scoring small forward. Then at that point you're shooting jump shots.
And he is a nice matchup for a guy like Melo, who realistically could be
that's the best case scenario for him. Yeah,
but he's not. But this idea that everybody operates with it in Los Angeles County, like, well, Ron Artest is a shutdown defender. Just put him on the other team's best scorers. Do you watch him play at all? Because he is not able to check those guys. A lot of those guys.
I've found that's the biggest problem with basketball analysis, and actually the media is really guilty of that. They judge people by what they did instead of what they are right now. And we saw that with the Rasheed Wallace signing. Mm-hmm. Rasheed Wallace quit on the Pistons last year. And, his stats were terrible. He averaged 6 points a game in the playoffs. He'd quit the last 2 playoffs. He got his coach fired. This was somebody that just was a guy who wasn't staying in shape and just launched three-pointers and was a 32% three-point shooter or something. And when the Celtics got him, you would have thought they got Kevin Garnett again. But, and now that we have Rasheed, it's like, did you watch Rasheed last year? Like, the guy quit on his ask the Pistons fans about Rasheed. And I felt like I was one of the only people who, and then the Boston fans are like, you're being a turd in the punch bowl. It's like, all right, well, I guess we'll have to see. And now it's, I don't know if you saw Thursday's game. Rasheed's been on the team the whole year, dating back to the preseason. Mm-hmm. Now, hasn't gotten hurt. He's been there the whole time. Reggie Miller's talking about the upside of the Celtics, and Reggie Miller goes, well, once Rasheed gets into game shape, or says something like that, it's like, he hasn't missed half the season. He's been there the whole time. I think this is what it is.
That's great.
Gets into game shape. What a disgrace. Seriously.
Yeah.
Making $6 million a year and an announcer, it's March, and an announcer saying once you get into game shape, been on the team since October. What a farce.
What do you, but are you still, the Lakers, everybody likes to try and entertain the idea that the Nugs might beat them or
I think the Nugs could beat them. I think for the Lakers, it's going to come down to health. And we've already seen Kobe's battled a variety of injuries. Gasol's been hurt. Artest, I think, is a little creaky. Bynum. Am I sure?
What about the Jazz too? I think again.
They do this though. This is when they get hot every year and they talk people into.
They're a bad match for the Lakers on the front line, but De'Aaron Williams is.
Who guards Kobe in that team? It always comes back to that. Mm-hmm. See, you have to have a guy who can at least bother Kobe a little bit. So, Denver doesn't have it either, and that's why if you're going to take the Lakers over Denver, that would be the big issue for me. Picking Denver's side is like ultimately, how am I stopping Kobe in the last 3 minutes of a game?
Yeah,
Who am I using Aaron Aflalo?
Well, yeah, it really.
I like Aaron Aflalo, by the way. Maybe he's the guy.
Yeah, it's a
sneaky good trade by them, but ultimately it's going to be him that has to stop Kobe.
And then, but your Celts are by the way, what else?
Celts are out.
That is, well, I guess we now know that that they get whipped in Boston by Jersey. That's embarrassing.
It's a mess.
They're
old. They don't get rebounds like you saw in that Cleveland game. Shaq went out. Celts were up like by 8 or 9. They lost by 20. Cleveland was like plus 29 after Shaq went out. They were just faster. They got to all the loose balls. Celtics don't protect the rim anymore. They just don't play the same defense.
Some depth that the Cleveland LeBrons are going to have on the front line once they get Ilgauskas too.
Hey, here's the thing with them though. You have the coach. Mm-hmm. Do we think the coach is capable of? You have all these different pieces, and the recipe's there. You've put it on the kitchen counter for him. Here's your steak. Here's your vegetables. Here are your sauces. But can he cook everything?
I don't trust that. That could lead to an interesting list of the worst coaches to win a title.
He'd be up there.
Yeah,
he'd be up there because like for instance, they're playing Shaq a lot. Every time Shaq comes out of the game, they look dynamite. They're so fast. Like that. Barkley is the only other national media person I've seen who goes crazy about, this is a team that has LeBron on it. You should be This is the most frightening open court talent, I think probably ever.
Uh-huh.
And you have him walking the ball up. This is a guy who should be just going. And they don't really do that until Shaq's not out there.
And can the Tricks beat them, the Orlando Tricks? I like them better last year than I do this year.
They have Vince.
Vince
will.
Ain't that right? Didn't you? That was another one that I felt like, well, you know what? Maybe I guess my grasp of the NBA isn't as good as I thought it was. That people seem to think that they're better now with Vince Carter over here.
Well, they gave up nothing for him.
But I mean, but they let Turkoglu walk away. Their teams, they're better off with Heated.
And I never understood it, because the reason they beat Cleveland last year is because of this weird forward thing they had with Dwight Howard and then basically two long forwards that Cleveland couldn't match, and you had to go small to play them, and it was just this weird matchup thing. Now they're conventional. Mm-hmm. They have the center, they got the guard. It's like they're a typical team. So they've lost that little edge they had, but ultimately Vince will.
Well,
between Vince and Dwight Howard, can you think of two less reliable guys coming through in tough moments, guys?
Yeah, I'm waiting for Dwight Howard to really go to the next level offensively still. I thought he'd start to take over.
Well, he had a little stretch there for like 5 games when he averaged like 30 points, 14 rebounds. Everybody started getting excited. Some Orlando columnists were, why isn't he being considered for MVP? It's like, well, because he doesn't play hard every night.
Well,
he plays reasonably hard, but I don't see him going out there and going, I'm going to dominate everybody tonight. I'm going to kick everybody's ass. He gets that look 10 times a year.
Yeah, and it's sad that history will completely forget this. I think people don't remember this less than a year later. Orlando could have beaten the Lakers last year. They should have won 2 or 3 games. They absolutely could have won that series. But still, it's a shame, and hopefully we'll get it this year. Unless the Celtics aren't going to make a run to the finals. But if you got Celtics Lakers, obviously that would be cool. Or Kobe versus LeBron would be great.
Cleveland is going to be in the finals.
Think so, huh?
Oh, no. Cleveland will be in the finals.
All right.
It's just a question of who comes out of the West.
It was so stunning to me, the way that they just had no answer. And you could see that in the first game against Orlando last spring. You could just see, so it all just is meaningless. This team just has their number. They just are not able to stop what they're doing. And
I'm still kicking myself because that regular season played out that way, too. And the people I knew who watched for this stuff were like, look, it's a bad matchup for Cleveland. It'll be fine. LeBron will take care of it. But, they're more equipped this time because Shaq, even at this point, they basically got Shaq for Dwight Howard and Andrew Bynum. That's why they traded for that contract. And then Jamison, the Jamison trade was, first of all, I had a couple problems with it. I was going to save this for a column, but I don't think I'm going to write about it. To not give up J.J. Hickson in that trade was unforgivable on Washington's part. Mm-hmm. Unforgivable.
Well, from everything I had heard, they weren't going to make the deal because they would not do that. Then
Washington should tell them, you know what, then we're not making it. Mm-hmm. To get what they got for Jamison, from a league competitive standpoint, is a disgrace. Because now this summer,
they would have ended up getting him at they could have waited to the last second. I bet you, if Cleveland had nowhere else to turn, they would have.
That trade was going to be there at 2:05, day of the deadline. But so now they have Hickson this summer that they can sign and trade with other contracts and try to get Chris Bosh or whoever. They have a much better chance of keeping LeBron now because they didn't lose Hickson. But the other thing is, Jamison now enables them to go big or small. So, let's say they're playing the Lakers. So now they can play Shaq, Varejao, and Jamison and play LeBron at shooting guard. And the Lakers would be like, well, now we have Kobe guarding LeBron this day. So then they'll have to reconfigure everything. Or they could say, when the Lakers had that smaller lineup with Gasol, Odom, Artest, so the Cavs now could go, like Hickson, Varejao, LeBron at small forward. Whatever. They can do whatever they need to do depending on the situation. They didn't have that flexibility before.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. Well, listen, for so many reasons, that's the final that we need to see. But we didn't get it last year. I hope we get it this year. And then I was thinking about it with the Olympics. I was just sure, because I've become cynical about it. I was just sure, just because hockey seems accursed in this country, that either the U.S. or Canada wasn't going to get to the final, and somehow it was going to be Slovakia versus Canada. Like, oh man, you could have had a great one. But
what, did I just say Slovenia?
Slovenia, yeah.
That's not a real country.
I don't know. That sounds right somehow.
Sounds like it's.
Or am I thinking of West Covina, a suburb of Los Angeles? But either way, I started thinking about what are the greatest missed finals, the what might have been finals.
03 was the all-timer.
That's
03
exactly
World
right.
Series.
It's the best one. Yeah, you could have had Cubs, Red Sox. That would have been, and the Red Sox obviously at that point hadn't won a World Series yet. That would have been the most spellbinding championship in any sports history, I would think.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that definitely is near the top.
That's got to be
list.
number one.
Yeah, I think that is your winner. in 93 for hockey people. You could have had, if the Islanders didn't upset the two-time champion Penguins with 66 and company, you would have had Gretzky 66. 66 is greater than 99 would have been the result there.
What?
Denver defending their Super Bowl with John Elway could have played Randall Cunningham and the Vikes. Instead, you get the because Gary Anderson misses the field goal.
In 96, there was one, too, when Jacksonville beat Denver, and then the Pats ended up sneaking in. But that also could have been Denver-Green Bay. And Denver was great that year.
Yeah,
remember that?
right.
Mark Brunell just kind of went nuts a mile high.
Yep, that's right, yeah.
And the Pats snuck in, and we're all like, wow, we made the Super Bowl? Like, we never thought that was a Super Bowl team. I always felt like, I don't know. The next year was going to be the year.
I know Boston fans think that the 86 Celtics couldn't, that there's no way they could be beaten there. But in 86, that would have been great, too, if you get
That's another
Ralph Sampson
it's a very
doesn't
sore
flip
subject
that one
for
in.
us.
Yeah.
The problem is the Rockets beat the Lakers legitimately. Like, it wasn't an upset. Like, they crushed them in 86. But, yeah, that whole year had been gearing towards Celtics-Lakers. Mm-hmm. And it just never happened.
One more of those. One more of Celtics-Lakers in the 80s would have been...
Can I throw one more?
Please. That's why I bring it up.
It's going to hurt. I think putting the Pirates in that 92 World Series would have been fun.
Yeah.
Not on the same level, but you would have had who was the AL rep that year? Toronto?
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, Toronto. Well, I guess maybe. But I mean, yeah, I guess that's a bad example.
No, listen.
I just think that Pirates team should have been in a World Series. Just it's a shame that it never made it.
The best one was the 90 team that lost to the Reds, and then in 91,
I emailed you that they were showing that 92 game.
I watch it every time. I don't know why I like to torment myself.
It's the most riveting old baseball game there is.
Listen.
It's even better than 86 Game 6 in Shea.
Oh, it's just a horrifying thing to watch.
It's really it's so tough. It's just brutal. And I think the difference, the Red Sox were able to come back, but for the Pirates, that effectively murdered baseball in Pittsburgh.
That was it.
It was never, ever the same, and you knew it as it was happening.
Yeah, and the shot of Andy Van Slyke alone in the outfield with the ball cap sitting up on his head.
I forwarded you a great email somebody sent me, because I mentioned it in a column, and the guy said that the reason Van Slyke was sitting there for so long was because he had just told Bonds to move over.
That's right.
And Bonds didn't, because he was
the greatest defensive left fielder of all time displays the most significant chance he'll have in his career.
What's funny is he had another one in Game 6 of 2002, which is also a strangely riveting game, but more fun to figure out who's on steroids in the game.
What's that?
Game
the
6,
game?
2002 World Series.
I don't remember. I was at that game. I don't remember.
It was 5-0. No, somebody hit one in the corner at some point, and Bonds was doing the Manny Ramirez on it, and ended up botching it, and ended up getting an extra run.
The 92 one, here's what I'll say. And no one cares about that ancient history, but I'll say this. If you watch that inning again, Stan Belinda throws strikes and to Damon Berryhill. He strikes out Damon Berryhill, and the ump is calling balls. It's crazy. And all right, this is the one people get upset about. Watch it closely. Spanky LaValliere maybe tags out Sid Breeze. He might get him. Everybody just assumes that he might get him on the foot before he gets across home plate.
Couple other underrated things.
And push it to extra innings, and the Pirates definitely win there because Bobby Cox had no one left in the bullpen.
Right.
He would. I think it would have been. I'm trying to think of who he had left. It would have been. He would have had to run a starter out there. He had nothing left. I mean, Francisco Cabrera got the hit, so that tells you what was left on the bench. 3
other things. I mentioned in a mailbag recently about how awesome Sean McDonough's call is.
Yeah.
It's a top 5 ever. Safe! The mustaches in that game are off the charts.
Fu Manchu.
Drabek's whole look is off the charts.
Yeah.
He's got the blonde perm coming out of the back of the hat, the mustache. I mean, he looks like either like a porn actor or somebody out of like some 70s disco special or something. And this is like the ace of your team who had put the team on his back. He's pitched in the 9th inning. He's thrown 200 pitches or whatever it was.
Yeah, those are
and he looks like that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It was awesome.
What a gem he twirled for 8 innings. You knew he was going to show up there. Yeah, I love that look. It's basically an homage to Gorman Thomas. I mean, when Gorman Thomas in the early 80s had to me, the quintessential baseball look for a white guy, the greatest when afros were in vogue. A lot of people talk, Gary Maddox had a great one. A lot of, I love that look of the baseball cap with the afro. The greatest one of all, Bake McBride. With Bake McBride.
Oh, I would have put Oscar Gambo over.
That's
Bake
a pretty
McBride.
good one, but I just saw the Cubs Phillies game that was, 73 to 68 or whatever the final was in that crazy game. And it is amazing how far out the afro sticks out on either side of Bake McBride's helmet. Because he doesn't wear the ear flaps at the plate, so the hair is sticking out. So I have this.
There's one. Hold on. Third and final. The worst immediate celebration to any great moment ever. Sid Bream slides. Then he raises one arm over his head, almost like somebody who's drowning in water. And Dave Justice can't figure out how to jump on him, so he basically just mounts him. And then it turns into an all-male orgy, basically. There's never been a worse celebration than that. Sid Bream's,
yeah, I'll tell you.
It is awful. You know what, Dameshek? This is threatening to be a two-parter.
You talk too much. That's the problem.
Well, we talk too much when we're both in the room talking to each other. So we have to break this into two parts.
So be it.
So come back for part 2 of the BS Report with Dave Dameshek.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNRadio.com.
Peace out.
To thank you for making Subway footlongs famous. Now enjoy any regular footlong as a $5 footlong. That's right, any, including your favorites like the savory chicken, bacon, and ranch. Any Subway regular footlong is just $5. Hurry in.